好，那我就把这个交给 William，William 给大家分享他参加过的一些面试。OK， 我就 mute 了。
可以，你们能看到这个 slide 吗？
可以。
能再大一点吗？字体有点小。
我看一下，好像已经是最大了吧，200，差不多吧。可以看到。
好多了。
对。行 ，OK。Let's get started. You are welcome, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk about the interview I had with insurance company called Sales and Course. I will break down the content to 3 parts. First round interview would be the first part, and the real world problem would be the second. The last round would be the second interview question. So the main focus today would be the system design analysis and implementation. So all the requirements are based on the problem case given by the interviewer. So I will go through each point from this content as the presentation move forward. Okay. So I got my first round interview from the Sales and Course about 2 weeks time. I submit my CV. The first round interview was it's like a phone interview. It took about 10 to 15 minutes, I guess, on that day. Yeah, as you can see on the slide, I list all the questions that I can remember. These questions are just some basic question you can expect to get asked in any interview. Yeah, but there were 2 questions he asked on top of my response that I feel very tricky to answer. These 2 questions really got me to think for a while during the interview. So the first question he asked was like this. When I told him I graduated as a accounting and finance student, he asked, why are you looking for a software develop job that is not aligned with your expertise? So I can't remember exactly how I addressed his question, but I probably said that because I'm interested in software developing, because the software can reduce labor cost and create value for the company or your boss, something like that. Yeah, I feel my answer for this question is okay, from counting perspective. Yeah. And the following question he asked was, do you think your current major is help for the software development? And I was thinking for a while and answered yes, because banking and insurance are traditional belong to the finance sector. So I'm a finance student. So it's certainly helpful for a developer that can understand the mechanic of finance, in order to make a software that is related to the finance, because they are, insurance company. they make app or software that related to the finance. So I'm pretty satisfied with my answer for that one. So, and so all in all, I felt like this round interview is sort of background checking. They want to know what if you got the right skill and experience, and or even personality they are looking for. So after this, they sent me a small project and asked me to complete this before the second interview. Then we can talk about this case, complete the case on the second interview. So here's the small problem case they give to me. You can take some time to read the question before we dive into next phrase. And also, here's the challenging problem. It is not display full of them. Here, just some requirement they ask you to follow in order to complete this app. Okay, move to next. Okay, let me quickly explain the requirement for this technique with the picture I'm drawn here. What he asked is to create a single application like this, assuming this is the website website page you create, and the application should have input slot, and like for example, it's like this one as like a normal DVA input slot with a click button, okay, and you type in the policy number and click OK, and the API code will the API will call from the backend, and the return value should be the information of the member. I mean the policy member, subscribe to the policy, who match the policy number you given from this policy number. So the number information should displayed on the page, like here, display window, which shows the member name, the address, age, phone, and so on. Yeah. And they also require the record of each member should save a history and being displayed on the history window. Like this, AV research, they remind a history would be recorded on this, and yeah, this is basically what they ask. Okay, and this is the front end structure. Okay, for the backend, I used RESTful API architecture design as required by the instruction. First, this is the workflow, which represent how the data flows in and flows out. Okay. First, the controller get called from the client side with specific URL, and parameters. And once the API get called, the specific controller will respond to that API call, then invoke the policy service. This is a service, in which has a repository dependency injected. The repository help this policy server retrieve the data from the database according to the class model, because this repository is generated will work according to the model. Here, the model would be like policy member model, right? And retrieve the data will be processed within the policy service, and eventually the processed data will return to the client side through the controller. Yeah, then the front end will be receive the data. This pretty much how the RESTful API structure handle the user request. Okay. Next page, I will elaborate a bit more on the RESTful API. Okay. This is a definition of a RESTful API. A RESTful API is a web-based architecture that uses the HTTP method to interact with source identified by unique URL, enable a platform and a scalable web service that can be accessed by the wide range of client application. I also list okay. So the next question is, why should we consider use RESTful API? And I also list the scenario that is suited for you to consider to use the RESTful API. So when you need to provide access to your backend data and functionality to application, when you need to build a highly scalable system, and also if you want to make a mobile or web application that's all suited for use RESTful API, because nowadays I would say a lot of people use RESTful API, almost 0.5% of them. It's getting very popular. Okay, I also listed other commonly used backend architecture pattern. Each of them has their own use of it in different situation, like the microservices for it's mainly for a big and a complicated project. Okay. Okay, this slide is showing the technique and the design pattern I have adopted in my application. I will talk about each of them in the next few slides. Okay. Okay, first one is generic repositories. So what is the generic repository? The generic repository is a design pattern used in software development that provide a standardized way to access data from data store, such as database. It is a type of a repository that can be used within multiple data module and entities. So why we use this repository? The advantage of using generic repository include like code reusability, easier maintenance and testing, and last, separation of concern between the data access layer and the other parts of application. These are the advantage I can think of for this particular app they asked. Okay. Okay, next one. So dependent injection is very important concept for the backend, at least for .NET Core now. So what is dependency injection? So the DI is the design pattern used in software development to manage the dependency between different components of application. It's a technique where the dependency of a class or component are provided by external entity rather than being created within the component itself. So why we use DI? The benefit of using DI include better maintenance-ability and extendability for your application, as well as improve the reduction of coupling between the components. That's very important. It makes your project easy to scale. If you add a new feature, if the structure is not be able to scale, then you pretty much have to restructure your whole system. So make it easy to decoupling is very important. So it also makes the code more modularized and easy to understand and debug. This is the advantage for using DI in your service or component. And the DI implementation, they are mainly two ways to implement. It can be implemented as a constructor injection or interface injection. The constructor injection is the most commonly used, and you often see it used literally every .NET Core project. It involves passing the dependency as argument to the constructor of the class. Yeah, and okay, let's go to put next. Data transfer model, okay. Next technique I used is data transfer model on my project. We should call them DTO. Data transfer model is a design pattern used in software development to transfer data between different components of an application. It's a simple object that carries data between different layers of application. The purpose of data transmodern that we use in our project is basically to separate the data from the behavior or logic of your application. This allows that data to be transferred easily between different components without being tightly coupled together. DTO also can be used in selectively exposure or hide the data for any sensitive data like password or any confidential information that is not necessary for you to exposure to the front end. This why I think it's useful to apply DTO in your project. Okay, let's go to next one. Interface. Okay, interface is also another important concept to master in your project. So what is the interface? So interface is to applying interface to service is a common practice in software development. Using interface allow for abstraction and decoupling from your class or component. Provide a constructor or provide a contract for compatibility, enable polymorphism and flexibility. So using interface basically allow for clear separation of concern between the component, make it easier to change or replace the component without affecting the whole system. Interface also supports polymorphism, that enabling different implementation of the same interface with unique behavior and implementation details. So another advantage of using interface is interface also promotes encapsulation, making code easy to read, understand, and maintain over time. Overall, using interface can help you improve the software design and maintain and its testability and scalability. Let's move forward to so back to the front end. Now the problem remains to us is how do we handle the returned data as a history record in the front end? At that time, I was thinking about fixing to preserve the data in the front end using context hook in React. But I think, well, it's kind of hard for me to keep the data persistent because if the data stored in the context, once you close the website, you start over again, then all data will gone. So then I start another solution, then I come out a solution for to return the data. I decided to create a service for save that the policy return the data. to the backend. Okay, let's see. Cool. So I decide to create the first service. Policy. I named it policy service in order to handle user policy searching request. I built the service in which the member history is injected so that I can access the database and do the CRUD operation. Okay, so the logic for this policy service is very simple. We just need to find a member from database according to the parameter of policy number and transfer this data to DTO, then return to the front end. Basically, this is a service used to handle the user request API call, like the front end page I just showed you a few slides ago. That click a button, then return the data and show on the data will show on the information window. Okay, the second service I created would called the record keeping service. Okay, the main purpose of service is to handle searching record for the user. It has two functions within it. One for read and one for add. Read means you get data from this service, from this particular function. Okay, you can see there are two functions. One is get record, which is will get a code once you click the OK button. And another function will be return the list of the research record to the database. Okay. Record service get called after get result from the policy server. Information about the number will be added to search record class, and then search record class will be saved to the database for data persistence. This is the class I designed for the keep the record. This is called the search record class. So then front end will get this history data by calling the get record API. So okay, let's move on to next. The second round interview is the online face-to-face interview. There were 3 interviewers. 2 of them are the project manager, like a team leader or something. Yeah, one is the HR, who gave me the first round interview. I guess the guy. Yeah. The interview started with self introduction. I just told them, basic information about me, like who I am, what coding language I often use, and the things I'm interested to do on my free time, or like my strengths, what's my strengths are, And just a very brief introduction about yourself. You don't have to say a lot. That is, is not the point for today's interview, because the second round is mainly focused on the technique question. Okay, then the team leaders start to give me introducing themselves. Then they talk about things like what the role in the team, and what product they make, something like that. And yeah, just provide basic information for you, let you know them what they do. And it's kind of like a warm up before diving into the question. Okay, after introduction, I start to introduce my application that I built. Information include the tool and the technique design pattern I used to build this app. Also the thought process and the limitation to the project. The limitation would be like the time is limited, because I only spend a few hours to design this app. And also I don't have the AWS or Microsoft Azure account to deploy my code online, so I'm not be able to show them online or post the link for them to view my code. So so they started to ask me question and associated with the application I have built. So I have a list, some of the question on the list. These are the question they asked on that day. Just part of them, I can't remember all of them. So yeah, you can have a look at these questions and think about it. Yeah. Finished.